Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to the tournament. Today we are on round 3, part 9. So we are concluding the first of the last 2 episodes of the round before we do dive into the 4th round. Now, round 4 is only going to have 5 videos. So by the time we dive into round 5, we're only looking at 2, maybe 3 videos tops. Round 6... Yeah, round 6 should only have 1 video. Now, I might be able to spread that out to 2 videos, but likely, again, we're only looking at, I'm more than likely just 1 video. And of course, round 7, 1 video. So we're probably going to break those down into 1 video per round 6, 1 video per round 7. We are, like I said, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We're almost complete with this tournament. I'm probably going to take a break. I know I was planning on doing a My Favorite Galoob tournament. I don't see that happening in January, guys. I need a break. I'm probably going to, if I do it early in the year, we're probably looking at February at the earliest, but more than likely March is probably going to be the closest time frame before that happens. But yeah, there are so many great figures that I am dying to see how that plays out. But let's dive into the priority, which is, of course, the LJN tournament. So, with a very few names remaining in the bowl, let's see what today's matchup brings. As we begin with Billy Jack Haynes, who will square off against Nickel and Dime, Nikolai Volkoff. Another Nikolai will square off against Andre, Series 6. Animal Black will take on George Steel Clothed, and Vince McMahon will take on the Hogan White and Blue from Series 1. Alright, and that Vince McMahon's from Mark Hagenford. That is the prototype-esque version. Alright, so let's go ahead, pull the figures, and we'll begin shortly. Alright, guys, let's begin with the first matchup, which is Nickel and Dime versus Billy Jack Haynes. So, here's the thing, man. These two figures, I've always said that these two are very similar in play pose, right? Not only the fact that they both have like very small arms in comparison, but the fact that they're both, they're very inward with their play pose. So, playability on both figures are nearly identical. I will always backtrack to the fact that the original Nikolai Volkoff was the very first figure, very first LJN I ever acquired, right? So I always say that that particular figure is my whole purpose, the whole reason I got interest in LJNs. Now, at the end of the day, I could have gotten a Ricky Steamboat figure. And I could have held the Ricky Steamboat figure and I'd be like, man, this is an awesome piece. I love this figure. Man, I could have gotten into LJNs holding that. I could have held King Haku or Haku. I could have did that with Jimmy Snuka. And I don't even like those 3 figures. Hulk Hogan, Don Morocco, SD. I mean, pretty much any. I could have said that for any of the LJNs. So it didn't necessarily have to be Nikolai Volkoff, but it just so happens that that was the very first figure that I acquired. And so it just so happens that was the first figure. So yeah, the Nikolai Volkoff figure in particular holds a special meaning. When I picked up the nickel and dime figure from Mark Hackenberg, this particular figure also has special meaning because I remember this look so vividly. I just never remembered what he was called. And I had no idea that it was Nikolai Volkoff who portrayed that character. I remember that Million Dollar Man had this guy that he used to abuse and used to humiliate and used to put him in like kind of like this little waiter type of deal, right? And used to humiliate him. And I'm like, that was Nikolai Volkov. That was so freaking odd to me. I mean, while Million Dollar Man has this whole dollar sign and throwing around cash, this guy is, your cent guy. I'm like, wow. And Nikolai Volkov is, tag team champion. He's this professional athlete. He was well known AWA champion, or well known through the AWA, through WWF and everything, and to come back into WWF all these years later and to be goddamn humiliated like that, I'm like, wow, he must have really needed that paycheck. And I like the USSR, T-shirt and everything, but this look is incredible. And even though it's not, hand drawn, they're stencils, they're like little stickers and whatnot. But you slap on the stickers, you kind of, paint around it, and it bleeds in with the rest of the figure, and it looks incredible. But I love the look of the Billy Jack Haynes. Once upon a time, yes, Nikolai Volkoff was probably my number 4 favorite LJN. Now, as the LJN collection grew, he fell out of the top 10. He's like number 16, number 17. So I want to say number 16 favorite, where Billy Jack Haynes is like number 5, I think number 11 nowadays. So, based on those numbers, yeah, Billy Jack Haynes, I classify as a better all-around figure. And I never liked the little hunchback on Nikolai Volkoff, so that hurts. I've always enjoyed the tattoos and everything. But I never grew up watching Billy Jack Haynes. I never even heard of that name to the best of my knowledge. So the character, the name, I never knew anything about that until I started collecting LJNs. If you asked me the name Nikolai Volkoff before I started collecting LJNs, would I have known that name? In all honesty, I don't know. I don't think so. If you had held up this look to me, I probably would have remembered this look. So that was something. Very similar looks. I can actually remember this, and because I love this particular figure so much, I still don't know if this particular figure makes it into my semifinals. Because semifinals, I keep saying, I don't think the semifinals is, because of the number of figures, the semifinals is not going to be 4 characters. It's going to be 5. I already know it. Does he make it into the last 5? I want to push forward the figures that I know have the best chance of winning this tournament. But can he make it to the last 5 with the opportunity to surpass the last guy standing in order to make it to the finals, to be the last 3 standing? Even if he's not in the finals, just to get it to the semifinals is enough for me for a lot of these figures. With this particular figure, I want to say yes. I think what Mark did with this was absolutely sensational. So Nikolai Volkoff, this was a heartbreaking loss because I think that this could have not just made it into the next round, but I think he could have gone into round 5 and potentially gone further if the right matchup presented itself. But Billy Jack Haynes is out after 3 rounds. Next matchup is yet another Nikolai figure as he goes up against Andre Series 6. And not a whole lot more I could say about this figure that I haven't already said about the nickel and dime figure. Pretty much what I just said, the very first figure I ever acquired. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily the one figure that I picked up. In the early going of my collections, Galoob, Hasbro, LJN, anytime I got like any new spares in, like I always used to hold up the figures and I used to compare them, check the actions for like the Hasbros, etc. And I used to choose the best figures, and the ones that were the most minty, I used to keep for the collection and try to sell the less minty one. And so I used to swap out figures. So I don't necessarily know if this is the one that I originally purchased. It could be. Again, I don't know. I don't remember. But the one figure I can say that started it all for me for the collection, when I started the LJNs, I watched the show. We all know what the show is. I thought that people were going to watch that show and they were going to lose their mind, want to like become collection obsessed, and I wanted to cash in on it. I'm like, yeah, everybody's going to start buying these, start selling these. I want to be part of that business too. I had no interest in these figures. I didn't know anything about these figures. I had no connection to them. I didn't have them growing up. I didn't know anything about them. But I got the figure in, held in my hand, and I'm like, damn, they got me. Suddenly, I wasn't just interested in picking them up for resale purposes. I wanted them for myself. And if I happened to purchase these big bundles and I ended up getting all these duplicates, so be it. I have extras for resale purposes if need be. I really like this figure a lot. It is one of my favorite pieces. It is one of the most enjoyable, playful pieces. There are certain figures that you really gravitate towards. Like I said, when you have like these King of the Rings or Royal Rumbles, what have you, there are certain figures that you enjoy utilizing. Hillbilly Jim is like one of my favorites. Nikolai Volkoff is one of the more enjoyable pieces. And I could talk about like Big John Studd and Hulk Hogan, right? Having one of the best play poses and one of the most enjoyable utilized pieces. Andre the Giant, yes. But I already know Andre and Hogan and Studd are incredible and fun pieces. I want to use the guys that that are enjoyable, but you're probably not going to be like over the top enjoyable. But they really are over the top enjoyable. But Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant is kind of like in the same boat as Hulk Hogan, in the sense that there are very few figures in this tournament, very few figures among the collection in general that have the credibility to defeat an Andre the Giant figure. Now, when you actually go back in my videos and you look at the figures that actually defeated any of the Andre the Giant figures, most of them aren't legitimate victories. Well, what do I mean? Now think about it. A Ricky Steamboat custom, which defeated a custom Series 2 repaint to look like a blackstrap, right? It wasn't a legitimate defeat because even a custom repaint Andre was still a better figure, but I just chose the Ricky Steamboat repaint because I wanted to put a different figure out because I had so many Andre customs or so many Andre figures in general as part of the tournament. So I could potentially have like 8 different Andre figures going into like round 4, round 5, round 6 potentially. Well, maybe not round 6, but you get the idea. But original Andre Series 6, again, is simply one of the best figures of the entire LJN collection, period. As much as I love Nikolai Volkoff, there's just very limited possibility that he could ever beat Andre the Giant, any of the Andres in a tournament like this. And it's sad because it's a good chance that Billy Jack Haynes could have beaten, if Billy Jack Haynes had taken on this figure and he had taken on Nickel and Dime, it's possible both Nikolai figures could have been gone. Strong possibility both Nikolai figures could have been gone. So, next matchup we said was Animal taking on George Steele. I like this matchup a lot, but it's also a sad one because you get the both figures are upgraded, right? So the one downside with actually no, there's not really a downside with this figure. Some people might argue that they would like plates that are removable, the chest plates that are removable, but no, the chest protectors, I'm actually open. Like, I could care less. If they were removable plates, great. If they were built on, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. Like, I'm probably more one of those people that are leaning more towards to having a preference to them being built on than having them removable. So I'm perfectly thrilled at the fact that they are built on, because this way you don't have to worry about them being shifty or anything like that, right? You don't have to worry about taking them off and having them get lost or anything like that. So I don't care. I don't care too much about removable accessories that can get lost. So, and you know that in the LJN world, accessories cost as much as the figures sometimes, and that's crazy. So, built on, I'm perfectly fine with that. Think about Mr. Fuji. Mr. Fuji is like a $10, $15 figure. He's got a cane. The cane itself is probably $10, $15, $20 by itself, and that's nuts. Now, imagine if his hat was also removable. That's like another $20 accessory if that was a removable item. Now, if that cane was built into his hand and you didn't have that removable accessory, he would still be a $10, $15 figure, and you'd have a cane and hat built in, still be a $15 figure, and you don't have to worry about that. You still have that aesthetic. So I don't mind accessories being built on, such as the chest protector. So the spikes, love it, huge upgrade. Plus, with the built on, you had to upgrade the fighting pose because you couldn't have that stupid Kempatera pose. Kind of give him more like that Zeus / Arn Anderson type pose, which is an improvement, of course. Much better play pose. Not the best, but it's better. Love the face paint. Better look. Better design. Tattoo. Absolutely thrilled with this figure. And I think these figures were actually a whole lot less expensive. Like, if I could recall correctly, I think that the original Legion of Doom Red was like $400 for the pair. But I think that the Black Legion of Doom, I don't remember the exact price, but I think they dropped in price. I think they went down like $50 or $80. I mean, I'm trying to think what they sold for. Did they sell for 320, 350, 360? I'm trying to think. Because I don't think they were $400 the same way. So that's kind of odd too, but like this a lot. Huge upgrade. And then you've got the upgraded George Steele. Kind of like you've got the upgraded King Kong Bundy. You take the bad play pose, you upgrade the arms, you kind of give him that you kind of give him the upgraded pose to kind of look like SD Jones, right? SD Jones, who has one of the most perfect play poses ever, got the fighting pose with the punch, and you got the choke slam. And now King Kong Bundy, which is already one of my most perfect figures ever, and now you give him one of the best play poses ever. King Kong Bundy could win this tournament. George Steele, which is a very similar figure to that of King Kong Bundy, right? Take a clothing accessory, slap that on him, give him a nice little upgrade, give him a real play pose. Now, it's not quite Haku-ish. You know, Haku is more like so, but it's not as good of a play pose, but as the upgraded Bundy, but it's an improvement nonetheless. And I think all they did was kind of like, instead of, changing Bundy to like, change the arms, I think all they did was kind of take the steel, and all they did was like kind of like raise them up. So I think that's why you get this. It's still an improvement nonetheless, and if this was just regular Series 2 George Steele, if he makes it out of round 1, you're probably looking at a round 2 run, and that's about it. But because you get this upgraded figure in a tournament like this, 300, I think even a round 2 push would have been too much. But no, a third run is amazing. And here he has a shot to make it to round 4. Don't get it twisted. This is a really good figure, but he just can't beat. He's not going to beat Animal. It's not going to happen. Everything from the chest plate, the positioning of the arms, the look of the figure, the fact that Legion of Doom is one of the most dynamic powerhouse tag teams ever, one of my most beloved tag teams. Yeah, I did not grow up watching George Steele, but I watched the hell out of Legion of Doom growing up. It's not going to happen. I was so thrilled to get this figure in, and I could not wait to do this tournament because I wanted to see how well George Steele could do in a tournament like this. And I think he held his own. So I am looking forward to possibly doing this tournament next year. And I think with a reduced tournament with like 128 figures, I think it's going to be fun, a lot more fun and enjoyable, because I don't have to do such a massive amount of videos. I'm not, like I said, I think the original line, I'm probably going to cut it down to like maybe 20 or 30 figures. Customs, I'm probably going to look at probably 80 figures. 80 to probably, depending on how many originals I choose. Like if I choose 30 custom or 30 originals, I'll probably do about 90, around 90 to 100 a custom. So but you're only going to look at about 120, 130 figures next tournament if I do it that way. So, and I really am going to choose the best of the best. So that is going to be an extremely difficult tournament to make, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be worthwhile, no doubt. Last matchup is going to feature from Mark Hackenberg his Vince McMahon as he takes on Hulk Hogan. Let's start off with the Hulkster. Here is another one of those figures that I talk about all the time that holds special meaning. So this figure actually kind of got me into Random Treasures. Now, how did this figure get me into Random Treasures? Well, back in around September, maybe early October, when I was first researching Random Treasures, from Andrew Sable, Move Over Swanson, I had purchased this figure on auction, and it was the first custom LJN figure I ever purchased. Now, when you look at the original Series 5 run of LJN, you got both the white shirt and red shirt Hulk Hogan. Now, at that time, obviously, I was not familiar with LJNs. I was still learning the different figures, different characters, the names, different years that they were released, different series of release of the figures and all that stuff. So I knew there was a white shirt Hogan, and I was kind of thinking maybe, possibly. Again, I wasn't familiar. I was still learning. I was literally brand spanking new to collecting LJNs, so I saw this figure. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know if this was a custom because I knew Series 1 Hogan had this look and everything. So was it a custom? Was it part of the original line as a repaint? I was brand spanking new. I literally just began to start collecting LJNs. I didn't know. So I was researching customs and trying to find the value of customs. Hey, were customs worth any money type of deal? Because I didn't want to overpay. And this didn't cost me a fortune. I don't know what I paid on this. It could have been like $10 for all I remember. It wasn't like $50, $70, anything crazy like that. $10, $15, $20, I mean, $30. Even $30, I think would have been fair. But like I said, it was not, crazy expensive. But, and I started, researching custom figures, and I came across Random Treasures, obviously, trying to research customs. And I talked about it before, researching Random Treasures, and then that's how I came across that Google video for New 80s Revolution, and that's how I found his channel, and he was reviewing Random Treasures, Bushwhacker figures, etc. So I actually discovered Random Treasures, or I discovered New 80s Revolution by researching Random Treasures, etc. So my first custom LJN figure ever. So this particular figure meant a lot to me. And it comes from Andrew Sable, Move Over Swanson, one of my favorite people to ever buy from. So, Hulk Hogan figure, a Series 1, one of my favorite figures, one of my favorite customs, and a very simple paint job. And I can't express that enough. You do not need to go overboard. When I kind of look at what Eric did with his Series 1, when I was talking about like the original San Francisco, and I'm like, you don't have to build on a t-shirt and all this. I'm like, look, paint the chest. That's all you had to do. This was a perfectly well done figure, and all you had to do was just paint over the chest of the figure. One of my favorites, and it's so simple. Sometimes simplicity is best. Just a white shirt and USA. Such an easy figure, but it means it's like one of my most desired, most enjoyable figures. Tough thing about this matchup, ever since I saw the prototype of the Vince McMahon figure that Random Treasures had, or I keep calling Random Treasures, that LJN had presented to Vince McMahon directly, I wanted that figure. And Mark Hackenberg was able to get one of his LJN figures and then customize the figure for me, and oh my god, did he do such an amazing job. Now, I know Vince McMahon LJN is not, in of itself, is not a better figure than Hulk Hogan Series 1. But the overall paint and design and flow of the colors and the prototype backstory of the figure, I think all of that really has to be a focal point of discussion of the figure. Now, value, I've said before, really shouldn't ever factor into determination for a tournament like this. Now, whether you buy something and you pay $1 for it, or if you buy something you pay $10,000 for it, you know, your favorite figure should be based on, like I said, you know, like colors and designs. Is it flashy? Does it stand out to you? What do you like about it? Is it a character you care about? Does it have a good play pose, and, you know, is it serviceable? Can you use it in a wrestling match if you wanted to? Do you like accessories that come with it? Stuff like that, right? But then again, if you do talk about the value of an item, what do you covet about the value? Hypothetic, and this is just an example. If I paid $300 for this, and let's say I paid $7 for this, does that make this more important to me because it was more expensive? Or does that make this more important to me because it's a figure that I absolutely love and it didn't cost me anything at all? So, what do you value more? The least expensive item or the thing that you actually had to pay up for to get? So, that's something that I always ponder when I talk about the value. When I think about that Bruiser Brody, I'm like, paid $250 for it. But then I look at like that Papa Shango Iron Sheik figure, and I'm like, okay, that probably cost me like what, $30 or something, or that Colonel Mustafa, $20, and that could be like the greatest LJN figure ever made. So it's like, which one do I value more? They're both great figures, but one cost me an absolute fortune. The other one didn't cost me anything, and the one that didn't cost me anything, probably, like I said, it's probably the best figure ever. So which value do you really have preference on? This sucks because this really is a tough decision. Everything says Vince McMahon. Like, literally, there's everything in my head says Vince McMahon is an obvious choice. If I were to go with Hogan, the only thing I think really that would put Hogan over the top is the fact that he is a Series 1 Hogan, and I will always kind of have a preference to a Series 1 Hogan above all else. Because I've always said there are very few figures that I prefer more than a Series 1 Hulk Hogan. There's probably 5 legitimate figures, if we're being honest. 5 figures in the entire collection that I really think that on a one-to-one battle, whether it's a custom Hogan or a original Hogan, that could legitimately beat Hogan on a consistent basis and in battles like this. And I know that Vince McMahon, custom or original, isn't really one of those figures. I just don't want to lose Vince this early. He is such a perfect figure. Hulk Hogan moves on to round 4. Alright guys, that does complete round 3, part 9. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please tune in tomorrow for the finale of round 3. And yeah, let's close out this round and see what happens. Thanks, guys.